Hi, my name's Trystan Petrash, and before we get into it, I just want to give a huge shout out and a thank you to my newest monthly donor, Jamie Machano. According to his Wikipedia page, he is, and I quote, awesome. Good to know. So if you watched last week's episode, which you can check out somewhere, you'll know that burgers are my absolute all-time favorite food. So today I'm going to share with you my second favorite food of all time, fried rice. But we're not going to do some boring ass fried rice. No. We're going to do fancy as fried rice. And how will we be doing that, you might ask? By utilizing the classic French technique of duck confit. But this of course begs the question, what the is confit? Good question. When you deep fry, you're submerging something in fat at a high temperature for a short period of time to make things crispy. Confit is the opposite, by submerging something in fat at a very low temperature for a very long period of time, resulting in a succulent and oh so tender finish. And while duck is easily the most famous protein to use for this, chicken, pork, and yes, even turkey are all equally wonderful. But duck legs are great for this for two reasons. One, they have a ton of fat, which takes a long time to properly render out. And two, the muscle is incredibly tough and takes a long time to break down. To start, in a small bowl combine kosher salt, freshly cracked black pepper, Chinese 5-spice, and Szechuan peppercorns. This will be used to cure the duck legs, as well as season them, since you can't really season them before going into the fat. It also draws out water, making them even more tender. Completely coat both sides in the cure, making sure to really work it in. You want every square inch covered so they absorb the cure evenly. Place the duck legs in a deep container, covering them with any remaining cure. Then place in the fridge for at least 12 hours, up to 48. So definitely plan this a day ahead. It'll be worth it, I promise. Oh, and if you're wondering what this is, it's some homemade bacon I'm curing. I will definitely be doing a video on this at some point soon. This piece would go for at least $25 in a store, but cost me less than $9 to make. Day-old rice is the best for fried rice, so you're gonna want to make this the day before as well. I'm using jasmine, which is a long grain and slightly fragrant. It's also my favorite, and I think makes the best fried rice. If you're a regular viewer here, then you know exactly what I'm about to cover. But if you're new here, the most important step when making any rice is to thoroughly rinse it first. Using cold water, agitate it with your hands, then rinse and repeat 2 to 3 times until the water runs clear, like this. Rice basically coats itself in rice flour, which makes for gluey, sticky rice. Rinsing it results in fluffy, tender rice with separated grains. For long grain, I'm using a rice to water ratio of 1 to 1.5. Season generously with kosher salt, then bring to a boil over high heat. Cover and simmer on low for 15 minutes. The following day, preheat your oven to 250 degrees Fahrenheit. For the fat, I'm using a combination of both duck and chicken fat, since that's just what I've saved up over time. Now, if you don't have any animal fat, don't panic. You can just use a neutral oil like canola. But because I am using solidified fat, it needs to be melted first over low heat. The smell from the seasoning has actually intensified, and it's kind of hard to see, but the skin and muscle have firmed up quite a bit, almost to a bacon-like consistency. But now we're gonna thoroughly rinse them off in cold water. I've had these curing for just about 24 hours, so even with all of the seasoning rinsed off, you can still smell the spices. They don't have to be perfectly cleaned, just as long as the majority of the cure is removed. Make sure to give them a good squeeze to remove any excess water. Transfer the legs to a plate lined with paper towel and pat dry. Take your time doing this. They need to be completely dry before going into the fat. I'm reusing the same pan I cured them in to cook them in, but any deep baking dish will work. Just keep in mind, the bigger the dish, the more fat or oil you'll need, so smaller is better. Place the duck legs in, skin side up, and cover with the warmed melted fat. Ideally, you want them completely submerged, but if a little bit is sticking out, that's totally fine. As they cook, they'll release a ton of fat, plus they'll shrink up, and after will end up completely covered anyway. Wrap tightly with aluminum foil and place in the oven for about 3 hours. To continue with our fancy AF theme, we're gonna make some Japanese Furikake rice seasoning. So in a small bowl, combine toasted sesame seeds, toasted black sesame seeds, bonito flakes, which are dried and shaved pieces of tuna. They're also what's used to make dashi stock. They're pretty dry, so just crumble them up with your hand. We're also gonna add some nori or seaweed, but we're gonna toast it first by waving it over an open flame. If you don't have a gas range, you can just use a dry pan and keep flipping it every few seconds until it's crisp and brittle. Once toasted, the nori will crumble pretty easily too. Now you can, of course, customize your furikake however you'd like. You do you. But for me, my favorite are these dried chili shrimps. They're eaten as a snack and have a spicy barbecue-like flavor, which gives the furikake a subtle bit of heat and some smokiness. But you could even use bacon bits in here and it would be exceptionally good, so play around with it and make it your own. Finally, season with kosher salt and a pinch of sugar. Furikake is great over rice, obviously, but you will find so many uses for it. It's even insanely good mixed with ranch and used as a dip. To maintain its flavor, keep in a sealed jar in the fridge, but since we are using completely dry ingredients, it doesn't need to be refrigerated and will last a long time in the pantry. The duck legs have been in the oven for 3 hours now, so we can go ahead and check them. There will be a bit of steam, so be careful when removing the foil. A good indicator of whether they're done or not is to check their ankles. When you see the bone completely exposed like this, it's usually the sign that they're nice and tender. It's also a good sign when you try to grab some and it literally falls off the bone. Now, traditionally you'd allow them to cool in the fat, but I'm hungry now, so I'm gonna cool them down the quickest way I know how. We've basically been under a winter storm for the last month, so that's fun. Once the fat is cooled down a bit, strain it into a container. This is culinary gold with a million uses. I'm sorry to be the bearer of bad news here, but you have not actually lived until you've had potatoes cooked in duck fat. After removing the duck from my Winnipeg fridge, they're cool enough to break down. The skin will literally peel off with zero effort, while the meat will basically just fall off. You can keep the skins. Chopping them up and crisping them in a pan, they add a richness and fattiness to a dish, but I usually just discard them. The only thing to keep in mind is this tiny bone. It can easily come off and get mixed in with the duck, causing a choking hazard, so just be sure to remove it immediately once you see it. The last thing we need to do is prep our veg. I am, of course, starting with some thinly sliced green onion, but we'll also be going with a good amount of ginger that we're gonna finely mince. The ginger really elevates the flavor of the duck, as well as some freshly minced garlic. And speaking of mincing, if you're looking to up your knife game, consider a monthly membership to my channel. There you'll get access to my new how-to series, starting with basic knife skills. The duck we can just give a very quick rough chop. It's so tender that it will break down and shred even more as it's fried, so it just needs to be small enough to get mixed in. Then heat a large pan over medium-high heat, preferably cast iron, and add a few spoonfuls of the reserved duck fat. As it just starts to lightly smoke, toss in the duck and fry until it just starts to barely crisp. Add the veg and cook for another 30 seconds before adding the day-old rice. Now, full confession, I did make a mistake here. I intentionally made extra so we could have it for dinner as well as lunch the next day. But the mistake I made was not using a big enough pan. While this is my biggest skillet, it wasn't large enough for the amount of rice I used. I should have actually used this beast. What ended up happening is, as it was frying, it was also steaming itself a bit, so some of the rice started to break down, just not enough to outright ruin the dish. Season generously with butter, kosher salt, freshly cracked black pepper, and a bit of soy sauce. Now, I can't explain it, but apparently there are some weirdos out there that like vegetables in their fried rice. Man, vegetables! Yeah, except peas. Peas are okay. Peas also just work really well here and go nicely with the duck. The last thing fried rice needs is some egg, but since we're going fancy, we'll be doing a poached egg. Bring a small pot of water to boil over high heat and add a small amount of vinegar, then reduce the heat to medium. Crack an egg into a small cup or bowl, then using a spoon, stir the water to create a cyclone, and gently drop the egg in the middle. The spinning force will force the eggs to keep their shape. Cook for 3 minutes for a nice gooey yolk. Then bust out your fancy... Where the hell did it go? It was just here. Oh, thanks. Fanciest bowl. Spoon a heaping pile of rice in, a generous amount of the furikake, and top with the poached egg, seasoning it with kosher salt and freshly cracked black pepper. And that's it. Duck fried rice with chili shrimp furikake. It's been a long 2 days to get here, but it... There you go. But it's about to be totally worth it. As far as fried rices go, this to me reigns supreme. And while it does take some time and prep, the overall effort is actually pretty minimal, considering how amazing the final result is. If you like my channel and are interested in supporting it, while also getting cool perks like access to my private Discord server, bonus content like my new how-to series, and shoutouts in episodes, you can check out my Ko-fi page. I'll have a link for that, as well as the equipment I not only used in this episode, but in my overall production, since I've had some people asking about the specific gear and services I use. And hey, if you've made it this far, consider hitting those like and subscribe buttons and turning on notifications so you never miss out on a new episode every Wednesday. Thanks for watching, and stay awesome. I don't know what else to say, so I'm drinking tea. You're probably watching this and like, oh, he's smart and writes a script and has it all. Yeah, no, I'm just making this shit up. Professional.
There's a good amount of snow in front of you. Yeah. Yeah.
Mmm. 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 Come here. Come here. Oh. This is Dax. I can't do a single episode without her being in the kitchen, just pacing back and forth, wanting to know what's going on. Yeah. Because you're annoying. And nosy. Jerk. Anyway. Thanks, Mike. Yeah, run and hide now.